Alright, what's up, yins guys? I'm going to do another chapter in this here book. And I've talked about this in some of my videos that a few of yins guys actually watch. I know a couple of you actually do. And this one, I mentioned this title, about credentials. There's other things in this sub-chapters in this chapter about track record, which we're talking about politics and elections today. People talking about the track record I'd read. And then the intellect, the different Yu-Gi-Oh cards I regard as the Yu-Gi-Oh cards everybody's playing, you see on TV and around the world. The big person, and I will get to these Mr. Inaccessible with always the person, but Mr. Inaccessible deals with, before we had these, what we have, like, you know, on computer now, you used to have answering machines and all that, so yeah, you do that, but flattery and snobbery. But today we're going to do the chapter credentials. And okay, we'll start. And this is funny. This is the truth. The story of your enslavement has actually mentioned this. Actually, I'll quote that right now. If you look at, once again, I'll talk about the YouTube video, The Story of Your Enslavement, two particular versions out there. That video actually quoted that. A person has to get they were sarcastically called it electronic dog collar, that they call a license for you to practice a particular trade and yada yada. And then I grant there are some things you have to go through schooling to know how to do and all that stuff, but you could get fake credentials, and there's actually a head gang, whatever you call it, powers that be, to grace you with the right to practice is a thing, you know, too. So, which is laughable in some cases, but okay, let's go on with reading this this chapter and subchapter inside of this chapter here. Credentials. An expert with a piece of paper that certifies he is an expert with credentials. He has a license from a school, the government, or the mafia, or any other gang that allows him to practice without too much interference. Credentials imply that he knows all the answers and has the experience with a certain area of expertise. And I mentioned before, and a lot of us know, that even like in things from psychiatry to psychology, abnormal psychiatry, psychology, different kind of rules now based on things that used to be mental sicknesses and delusions out there, or actually they're rewriting the textbooks that you go to school with to legitimize certain people. And there's certain things that whatever floats people's boat if they want to practice a lifestyle, but now they're forcing it down their throats by putting so-called wink wink experts being shoved down our throats, you know. So if only the author of this book still around right now, and he's probably looking at it on TV, what so-called experts are pushing right now too, you know, I mean, so yeah, you gotta laugh there too, you know. Another scenario here where the author of this book could consider actually writing this book again. He'd have a hell of a fun time writing a book like this again. And take my hat off to him. Okay, but anyway, enough about that. Credential implied that he knows all the answers and has the expertise to deal with a certain area of expertise. Credentials also say that he has paid the price to the authorities. Whether you pay your school tuition, you pay whatever fee to get that piece of paper, or badge, or a license. Well, of course, you actually got illegitimate cons and counterfeit licenses and credentials and diplomas too. That's the powers that be. There's a reason for that too, because to try to discourage all kind of shit. But does it really? You know, people get caught bribing people anyway. But yeah, so they say, you know. But yet, people conveniently have control over things too. So this does go both ways. I'm just saying. But credentials also say that he or she has paid the price to the authorities or head of the gang, whoever controls, to be graced with that badge or diploma or whatever they have, which is little like buying protection you might not need. Some would call it extortion. It's called extortion in criminal subculture, but then your mafia that has political pull gets away with it too. Just like the video, the story of your enslavement, talking about the mafia didn't originally control businesses directly, but they send thugs once a month to collect, to steal or extort money by threat of violence or whatever from the business owners, more covertly, but sometimes they're more arrogant in some ways too, but that's a lot of other stories. But I'm being sarcastic here too. Keep this from being dull, boring ass reading, like a robot, but gives me a chance to express my thoughts, but anyway, but credentials, diplomas, licenses, awards, and experience are not necessarily synonymous with knowledge of the facts or wisdom. I've known some people new to a field of endeavor who instinctively knew more than others who had been in it for years. Seniority was irrelevant. Talent, ability, and knowledge was not. Historically shows hundreds of self-taught people without even a high school education who created the most brilliant of inventions, great art, or succeeded incredibly in business. As a matter of fact, schools, which are greatly responsible for as many credentials, are also responsible for producing illiterates and incompetents, as well as giving illusions of grandeur to many youth who have to face the painful reality later. Yes, a lot of us say this too. Colleges and universities and different things, which it's supposed to be to learn a trade, so you know how to do things like, of course, you can't just fix an airplane or any kind of thing, or just build a building, without it falling down, be an architect or whatever. Yeah, naturally, but a lot of things in college are a scam. Even, say, if you want not to stick up for the government or be negative to the government either way, or kiss the ass either way, the government, in a sense, had one decent ulterior motive, like to give people grants and student loans, right, to figure that people will get into some better paying jobs, upgrade themselves so they can pay more taxes. Well, also, they do a reverse discrimination now too, which work the opposite of intent in a lot of cases. But oh yeah, and the colleges, just like doctors got indicted for milk and insurance, comparable the same way. Colleges, when governments were giving people grants and student loans, and kids were actually richer or poorer, to get parents to co-sign for loans, because the colleges, universities, even community colleges up the tuition and put more technical costs, what you call them, other charges on there. So they figured that the kids would find a way, ask parents for money or to co-sign or get how many of these kids, end up charging up credit cards and getting their parents to co-sign for shit. And yeah, if you even get some really fancy-ass job, and you're paying on the student loans and paying on credit cards, you're still just a debt slave living on credit. You upgraded yourself, but that's what they want. You're a debt slave. College is a scam. They want to milk more money, whether you got a rich mom or your daddy that forks out money, which might be nice, or you get these fucking these colleges, you take things and all that. A lot of people out there, governmental student loans will curse and shake their fists when they see their obituary and shit that they can't pay. But yeah, even though the government does that, they up the cost. So the credentials, going to college to buy your credentials, and even some people, you kiss the ass of the right people, they let people cheat, bribes and all that. So it's like just another big scam, even though some people need some technical knowledge to do some things, of course, naturally, yeah. I can go on, but anyway, yeah. And again, the illusions of grandeur, many youth will have to face painful reality later. Like I said, in other words, some make it and some don't. And to sell you on this different thing. And okay, Carl Hess, an important speechwriter for Barry Goldwater, who dropped out of school at 15, commented, "I loved education, which is why I spent as little as possible in school. The only thing you have to do with kids educated is abolish the school system." Yeah, and I'm going to stop here too and say, yeah, go look at the little video clips about the late George Carlin quoted, you know, in the 80s. Yeah, that's why education sucks. And then he tries to nail down certain people who, in an argument, get them in conversation by themselves. People saying, "Oh, we got to put more into education. Put more money into education" is always the answer, but it never works. Why is that? I could go. Anyway, rather than me go on and on, look at the George Carlin comedy clips on YouTube. You know what I mean, too, and that'll tell you more than what I waste all this time telling you in the middle of reading this. But yeah. Yeah, the only thing you have to do to get kids educated is abolish the school system. Credentials can be killers. A college education can easily cost parents $40,000 per child, which puts an enormous financial strain on them. These are high costs are necessary, but these high costs are necessary to set the limits of the select circle, which keeps out the mass of other competition that would develop if not for credentials. A number of years ago, I developed a program after much study and research that I thought would solve the problems of the school system and produce truly educated students in the most efficient manner. Well, like I said too, it's almost like they keep certain people poor on purpose and discourage people on purpose so that they can so their relatives get everything first. You know, all like people talk about the elitists, everything else. You can go on about that. People are kept in lower statuses and to make sure their people get all the important slots. That's why you're hearing all these bribes now. These celebrities bribing and buying false credentials, and they're indicting a few co-conspirators and getting a few they're indicting a few token people that get on the news is to satisfy the public. You know, when it's been fucking going on Star of Full House and all that, you know, giving them a little bit of jail time or whatever. But yeah, I could go on about that. Okay, so I almost lost my place here. As a lay educator, my knowledge wasn't revolutionary, but I knew it was effective. Probably, yeah, he probably been more effective than Common Core or what's that other one? To make a long story short, I contacted foundations, businesses, and government to no avail. I did succeed in getting a visit from the official of the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, who proceeded to tell me honestly, or is this a contradiction, that I couldn't or wouldn't get to first base because I didn't have the credentials. He stated that the educators with the degrees would be looking at this program and would tear it apart on that one point alone. So, and again, people with the credentials, once you get those credentials, whether you get it honestly or you bought your way into it, cheated your way into it, new right people, the people with those credentials have the right to rewrite all the rules and literally rewrite the textbooks. And, geez, people can rewrite every different psychological, moral, or platform of every damn kind. You know what I mean? But yeah, I can go on and on there. Well, they would be absolutely unforgiving, resentful of my attempt and would do everything in their power to prevent it. Although I resisted this cynicism momentarily, feeling people couldn't be so petty, I instinctively knew he was right. So I went on to other ventures where I did not need credentials. I was not crushed, but I did feel a sense of sad disappointment, which was somewhat agitated because I knew that the great Admiral Rickover, the father of the nuclear submarine, and I had experienced a similar situation with professional educators. While he wrote a book about this experience, I was effectively blocked because I did not want to make a crusade out of mine. Ironically, the value of credentials has plummeted in the last few years. For one, the recession has put hundreds of PhDs out of work, and with the prior overproduction of doctorate degrees, the market was gutted anyway. In addition, like counterfeit Cartier watches, Gucci bags, designer jeans, one can actually buy a college diploma without ever having to attend classes for it. Oh, I did, in parentheses here, I was doing, I think when The Amazing Atheist on YouTube, remember when he was on, if you want to look it up on there, on Joe Rogan show, The Amazing Atheist on YouTube, managed to get 2 interviews on Joe Rogan, and his father supposedly went to prison for running a diploma mill somehow, and supposedly, you know, out of the off the radar of of paying taxes to the government, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, I looked some stuff up to see if he was lying, and I found out, you know, a couple of things. I'm like, wow, the dude ran a thing called the diploma mill. But yeah, he was on Joe Rogan. So there are my point is there are diploma mills out there. And I learned a lot doing some Googling some things. I was like, oh, damn. So that was some interesting personal stuff about The Amazing Atheist father, and it opened the doors for me to check on, wow, yeah, there were a lot of diploma mills. Well, there are legit diploma mills out there. They're called colleges and universities, and this author here was literally saying that you can get a doctorate and PhD, but there's so many flooded out there, and there's so many people with law degrees I seen on TV a long time ago, and no place to put them. You know, I mean, they'll sell you a degree, but you got to move all the way somewhere to get a job somewhere, or like anything else, you know. But yeah, I could go on about that too. But okay, let's get back to the reading. Yeah, one can just as easily become a minister of his own church and be exempted from paying taxes by simply paying a fee and sending away for the official document. What is that, the 501c3? That's why you got so many legitimate cults out there. Yeah, you can have a cult. You're allowed to have a cult in a government, even though cults are all over the news and the cults that cause the most trouble. I can name a few. Yeah, it's actually totally legal to have a cult, you know, and they're not looking for you to murder anybody, but imagine that they'll look the other way if you getting good with certain politicians and buy them off. But yeah, as long as you pay your dues and get legitimized, you know, pay your fee, you can get a... I think my one instructor when I was in college, I had one class that, anyway, like it was like called Modern World Religions, and when I was in college, it talked about all the religions, everything from Islam to Buddhism, and explaining what it was. But it counted as a social science elective. But he even mentioned, he was also one of my instructors in one of the computer classes that I was taking, you know, for Java and networking and Visual Basic and Java. But anyway, he made sarcastic references how easy it is to get a 501c3 if you literally had the means to pay your dues and yada yada. So I kind of looked back laughing at that. But yeah, anyway, in the same manner, someone somewhere will sell you a piece of paper for anything you want to be. Sadly, the counterfeits fool many of the authorities, as well as the majority of people who have made official-looking credentials their requisite. They have bought the BS that credentials certify both knowledge and experience, but long before phony papers came along, official credentials were so overinflated that their true value and criteria were quite questionable. Well, yeah, there's a YouTuber that talks about all these ones that claim they're certified in the fitness realm. I've been looking at YouTubers for the serious fitness, and there's a couple YouTubers that I've subscribed to that talked about. This book doesn't talk about it, but the author, if he wanted to write a book like this today, he'd probably notice that too. And there's this thing, I don't know, that they're advertising on TV. Guarantees you will get a job in, if you could get certified, what is the ISSA, whatever the fuck it is, something SSA, or they get a job at fit. And then you get all kind of people on YouTube that are phony, taking people's money and stupid shit. That there's YouTubers that kind of call them out. They're scammers. they'll even boast a fake piece of paper that certify themselves as this and that, you know what I mean? And some are physically fit more than others, and some of them get by some kind of ways by social media influence. But I'm just saying that in parentheses, that should be in this book if the author ever wrote something else. But yep, got me started. Don't get me started on that shit. Okay, I almost lost my place again. Yeah, get a piece of paper for anything you want to be. Sadly, the counterfeits fool many of the authorities as well as the majority of people who have made official-looking credentials their requisite. They bought the BS that credentials both certify both knowledge and experience, but long before phony papers came along, official credentials were so overinflated, their true value and criteria were questionable. So he's saying, the author is saying, yeah, even with phony credentials all over the place, even the legit credentials are all over the place. And like I said, as it is, the person who gets certified can fucking change the rules and change the textbooks and everything else too. Yeah, it must be nice. But anyway, yeah, this chapter. The counterbull ends this chapter. Counterbull. I suggest you visualize diplomas, licenses, or any other paper credential as toilet paper. This will initially put things in perspective. Secondly, if someone presents their credentials to you first instant to show their authority, legitimacy, and knowledge, get suspicious fast. Get suspicious pretty damn fucking quick. Yeah, I'm with the author. Since checking the source of credentials may be ineffective because the source itself may be phony, check out the associates surrounding the presenter. Birds of a feather flock together, but most of us all use your common sense and intuition to evaluate the person who is saying, and now he's saying it. Quite often, the person is synonymous with the lack of real substance and truth in a situation. But anyway, yeah, I must laugh to myself at, even though the late George Carlin made a reference here about electricity going out and all the serial killers would take over. Still, it goes into my mind, the late George Carlin could have talked about it, maybe he talked about other things I didn't see. You know, out there's a guild of people that get together with their fake diplomas, and you could say another special interest group, like the late George Carlin said, the Association of Sociopaths and Narcissists and Sociopaths and what have you. But I'm thinking almost if electricity went out and life as we know it came to a hold of anything cataclysmic or disease or virus, these so-called educated people, some of them would be the first to become serial killers, you know, if they had any ties with legit authority or badges. They'd be the first people, when the money goes out, they'd be getting their prey, so to speak. You know, raping and murdering everybody and want to establish their new kingdoms, and that'd be their dream of a step of, you know, say the legit government goes down, we could have a worse problem on our hands than the government that some people don't like to begin with, you know what I mean? Not to stick up for government and authority, but you can imagine things could get a lot worse. At least we could move around in the environment we have, you know. But then, yeah, a lot of people with these so-called credentials, the other ones that don't become serial killers or whatever, or use whatever social pull they have, they wouldn't have, like I said before, them and social media influences, all them, a good many of them won't have that to hide behind, and they will actually become prey, or they would have to join something or kiss somebody's ass to survive, so to speak. But yeah, you can go on and on about that, but that's just some extra shit on my part that, yeah, these bullshitters, I'm saying these bullshitters, are basically dependent on the civilized society that we actually have. Just like the author is indicating, you got to wonder if anything came to a screeching halt. They'd have nothing to hide behind. But, all right, that's the end of this video.